My husband's cold, distant secretary, Ruby Kuntz, was so busy chasing a multimillion-dollar deal she hadn't even touched her food. Eric Tyler casually peeled 3 shrimp for her. Right in front of him, I called my lawyer. Caleb, draft the divorce papers. I'm done. Eric looked at me like I'd lost it. He'd barely slept for days because of the contract. You're divorcing me because I peeled 3 shrimp for Ruby? Sandra-san, do you seriously have to treat every woman like your enemy? Ruby stood from her chair, pretty and perfectly composed, acting like she was above all of this. Not everyone's obsessed with relationship drama like you are. Everyone here's been killing themselves trying to land this deal. We barely even have time to eat. Can you stop making my job harder? The employees around us started whispering. She already chased off 9 secretaries. And she's still causing scenes. She only acts like this because Mr. Tyler spoils her. Any other guy would have divorced her already. I seriously hate women who tear down other women just because they're jealous. Employees deserve basic respect too. Eric grabbed my arm, trying to pull me outside. Let's talk somewhere else. If you want a limited edition bag or whatever, I'll buy it. I yanked my hand free and dragged over a chair. Say it here. Caleb's on his way with the divorce papers. We still need to sign them. The second he realized I was serious, his eyes went red. Sandra, we've been married 8 years. I've given you everything you ever wanted. You drove away 9 secretaries, and I never said a word. I thought you were just being emotional. But divorce? How can you do this to me? He looked wrecked. Eric had those unfairly pretty eyes. Right now they were bloodshot, full of what looked like heartbreak as he stared at me. Everyone around us immediately looked at him with sympathy. Ivy, one of the longtime employees and one of my friends, rushed over. Sandra, Eric really loves you. Ruby's only been here 3 months. They're strictly boss and employee. They don't even talk outside work. You're not usually unreasonable. I stayed quiet for a second. Everyone looked relieved, like they thought I'd finally calmed down. But I was only staring at the 3 peeled shrimp sitting on the plate. This marriage is over. Right then, Caleb Turner, my lawyer, walked in with the divorce papers. I signed without even pausing, then handed the papers and pen to Eric. Your turn. The second he saw my signature, Eric's eyes turned red. He grabbed the papers and ripped them apart. Sandra, enough. Even jealousy has limits. You know how much I love you. I'll never agree to a divorce. How could you use this to hurt me? The crowd stared at him like he was some tragic guy hopelessly in love. Ruby finally sighed. Fine. I'll resign, okay? Just don't divorce Mr. Tyler. She started packing her things. Now everyone looked at me with even more disgust. Mrs. Tyler's seriously insane. She's literally forcing someone to quit. Women like her are the worst. The other secretaries were one thing, but Ruby's the sales lead. The company literally depends on her. She gets everything she wants and doesn't even work, yet she spends all day targeting women because she's jealous. She seriously has nothing better to do. Even Ivy stayed quiet this time, head lowered. I didn't react. I just looked at Caleb. Please print another copy. This divorce is happening today. Everyone stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Ruby looked even angrier. I already said I'd resign, so why are you still pushing for a divorce? Do you seriously need to paint me as some homewrecker to feel better? I told you nothing's going on between me and Mr. Tyler. I'm just trying to work and support my family. Why are you making my life so hard? I looked at her calmly. He's never peeled shrimp for me. The whole room went dead silent. Even Eric froze for a second. Then his anger snapped. If you wanted shrimp, you could have just said so. I would have peeled as many as you wanted. But you've gone too far today. Get out. I don't want to see you right now. He grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the entrance of Novacorp. I still shoved the freshly printed divorce papers at him, demanding he sign. Then the dizziness hit. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. Eric and a few Novacorp employees crowded around my bed, all wearing the same worried look. The second he saw my eyes open, Eric grabbed my hand and kissed it. Sandra, you're pregnant. We're having a baby. His face lit up with pure excitement. Proud future dad mode, activated. The employees instantly relaxed. I knew it. Sandra practically carried the company before this. Something had to be bothering her. It's probably the hormones. I was a mess during my pregnancy too, crying, overthinking, all of it. A baby's good news. Let's just forget what happened earlier. But hearing the news, I couldn't smile at all. Sandra, 8 years. We finally have a baby. Eric pressed his ear against my stomach, grinning. Hey baby, I'm your dad. Think you're a girl or a boy? The room broke into laughter. With genes like Mr. and Mrs. Tyler's, that kid's gonna be gorgeous either way. The whole room felt warm and happy. I sliced right through it. Baby or not, I'm ending this marriage. Their expressions froze. She's pregnant and still wants a divorce? Before they could say anything else, Eric rushed them out. Sandra's emotional right now. Go back to work. She'll calm down in a day or two. Except 1 day passed. Then 2. Then 4. I still wanted the divorce. Eric refused to sign the papers, so I carried them everywhere and followed him nonstop. To meetings. To the office. Even to a client dinner with an executive from the partner company. Ivy held the contract. Ruby was there too. Eric claimed the executive only agreed to sign with Novacorp because of Ruby, so apparently she just had to attend. After endless drinks and corporate ass-kissing, the executive was finally in a great mood. He smiled at Ruby and lifted his glass. Ruby, I'm only signing this deal because of you. He picked up his pen. Before it could touch the paper, I slid my divorce agreement in front of Eric. Since you're signing something already, sign this too. The second the divorce papers hit the table, the whole room went dead silent. Mr. Langford's expression darkened fast. Mr. Tyler, what exactly is this supposed to mean? Eric immediately grabbed the papers and forced out a smile. Mr. Langford, it's nothing. My wife's pregnant, so she's been emotional lately. I'll talk to her after we get home. I yanked the papers right back. Nobody wants your little talk. Sign it. Right now. The second you do, I'm gone. I won't bother you again. My voice didn't shake once. By then, Mr. Langford already looked furious. Mr. Tyler, you can't even manage your own marriage, and you expect to discuss business with me? He stood up coldly. If this is how little respect you have for us, there's no reason to keep cooperating. Then he walked out with his team without another glance back. Eric and Ruby rushed after him, trying to stop him, but Mr. Langford never turned around. Just like that, the multimillion-dollar contract was gone. When Eric came back into the private room, his eyes were bloodshot. Ruby didn't look any better. I held out the divorce papers again. No one's interrupting now. Sign them. This time, neither of them said a word. But Ivy, who had always been close to me, snapped first. Sandra, you've seriously gone too far. She shot to her feet. Work is work. Personal drama is personal drama. Do you even realize you could destroy Novacorp by pulling something like this? You used to know better. What happened to you? Ruby stepped forward and glared at me. I spent a week taking Mr. Langford out to dinners, and an entire month chasing this deal. Now it's gone. Happy now? Because of your jealousy and obsession with targeting me, the funding's gone too. I'm not like you, Sandra. My whole life doesn't revolve around a man. I have a family to support. One selfish stunt from you destroyed everything I worked for. Then she grabbed her bag and stormed out dramatically. Ivy gathered the documents and followed after her. As she passed me, her voice turned ice cold. You're not my friend anymore. And just like that, only Eric and I were left in the room. Eric's face stayed grim as he silently cleaned up the mess. Then he looked at me and frowned. You already destroyed a multimillion-dollar contract. What else do you want? I stared at him, my expression still cold. You know exactly what I want. That finally made him snap. He slammed the table over with a crash. Divorce. Divorce. That's all you ever talk about. Have I ever done anything to betray you? For 8 years, I handled the company and took care of you without complaining once. Why can't you try understanding me for once? By the end, his eyes were red. Sandra, I'm exhausted. Then he stumbled out of the room like he might fall apart. Several servers had witnessed the entire fight. They started whispering the second Eric left. Mr. Tyler's basically famous in Crestford for spoiling his wife. Seriously, every birthday, he does those giant drone shows confessing his love. And he posts about her nonstop online. She could hand him a balloon, and he'd act like it was the greatest moment of his life. Rich, handsome, obsessed with his wife. Where do you even find a guy like that? And she still isn't satisfied. Women like that always love drama. No man can deal with it forever. They're definitely getting divorced. I stopped walking and turned toward them. They immediately thought I was about to complain and rushed to apologize. But I only smiled at the woman who said we'd end up divorced. I hope you're right. It didn't take long for the whole company to hear I'd tanked a multimillion-dollar deal for Novacorp. Then my mom found out. Seriously, Sandra, what is wrong with you? Why are you suddenly demanding a divorce? And now the company lost a multimillion-dollar contract because of you. How am I supposed to help if you keep acting like this? Stop making Eric miserable. He may be an orphan, but he's been part of this family since he was 10. Your father and I practically raised him. He's always given you whatever you wanted. You were the one who said you liked him. You were the one who insisted on marrying him. So what is this now? It hasn't even been that long, and you're already putting him through hell. I'm warning you, quit throwing tantrums and bullying him. Don't bring up divorce again. I just got off the phone with him, and he sounded devastated. Do you hear me? If you don't stop this, your father and I won't let it slide. I stayed quiet for a long moment, staring at the gray sky overhead. Then I let out a slow breath. Mom, I'm divorcing him. My dad completely lost it. Did we raise you wrong or something? How did you become this irresponsible? You're married, and you're still acting like this? I'm telling you right now, if you go through with this divorce, I'll act like I don't even have a daughter. Then he hung up. I was just about to call him back when my phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. Sandra. Starcrest Hotel. Room 501. Waiting for you. I headed there immediately. The next morning, photos of Caleb and me leaving the hotel together blew up in the company group chat. Naturally, they made their way to my parents too. My dad called immediately. You foolish girl. So this is why you wanted a divorce? I thought you'd lost your mind, but turns out you've been screwing around behind Eric's back. Then my mom snatched the phone away. Sandra, what is going on? Come to the company. I'll explain everything. I hung up before they could say anything else. Half an hour later, Caleb and I walked into Novacorp side by side. Everyone stared at us with pure disgust, like we'd committed an actual crime. Wow. She really showed up with her affair partner. Zero shame. No wonder she kept picking fights with Mr. Tyler. Guess she already had a backup guy lined up. I called it. What sane woman divorces her husband over 3 peeled shrimp for the company's top sales rep? If I were Mr. Tyler, I'd be thanking Ms. Kuntz too. Peeling shrimp is nothing. Honestly, that baby probably isn't even his. The whispers were still going when Eric stormed over and punched Caleb straight in the face. My expression dropped instantly. I shoved Eric back and rushed to help Caleb up. You okay? I didn't even look at Eric. All my attention was on Caleb. Eric hit the floor and stared at me like he couldn't believe it. You pushed me for him? More employees crowded around us. Ruby and Ivy included. The second Ruby saw Eric on the floor, she ran over and helped him up like some loyal little girlfriend. Real subtle. Ivy looked at me, disappointment written all over her face. You're seriously with this lawyer? No. Nothing happened between us. But those two. I walked straight up to Eric and Ruby, my eyes locking on Ruby's hand wrapped around his arm. Forgot to keep your distance again? Ruby jerked her hand away from him. Don't make stuff up. I was helping Mr. Tyler up. You're the one cheating, and now you're trying to drag us down with you? Everybody saw the pictures of you and this guy leaving a hotel together. Eric looked even angrier. Sandra, I'll never forgive you for this. I stepped forward, ready to argue, but Ivy cut me off. Sandra, you've seriously gone too far this time. Ruby has a husband and a kid. How could you accuse her of something like that? I frowned. How do you know she has a husband and a kid? I ran into her with a man and a kid at the grocery store not long ago. They looked really happy together. Stop throwing around crazy accusations. My parents had been standing near the entrance the whole time, listening. Sandra. Enough, my dad barked. Apologize to Eric right now. The second Eric saw them, his eyes got even redder. He staggered over, looking miserable. Benjamin. Melinda. This is my fault. I'm the useless one. I'll agree to the divorce. Ignoring the resentment aimed at me, I spoke calmly. Don't you all want to know why I'm insisting on a divorce? Fine. I'll tell you. While everyone stared in confusion, Caleb walked in with Eric's previous 9 secretaries behind him. The hum of the air conditioning in the lobby of Novacorp was the only sound. Left. Caleb Turner stood up slowly, his fingers gently tracing the corner of his jaw, where Eric's fist had landed. A faint, dark red line of blood trickled from his lower lip, but his eyes behind his spectacles remained perfectly calm. The cool, clinical look of a senior litigation partner who had spent months preparing for a trial. He didn't look at Eric. He reached into his leather briefcase, pulled out a clean silk handkerchief, and wiped his mouth. Sandra. Her father, Benjamin Son, barked, his voice carrying the deep, unyielding authority of a man who had spent 40 years building the foundations of Crestford's business community. What is the meaning of this? You brought these women here to make a scene? In front of your mother and me? Have you completely lost your dignity? My dignity, I said, my voice quiet, flat, and steady as I walked toward the center of the lobby, is exactly what I'm here to reclaim, Dad. I looked at the 9 women standing behind Caleb. They were not wearing the cheap, flashy clothes of the jealous, insecure housewife's victims that Eric had painted them to be. They wore professional business suits. Some of them carried briefcases, others held certified legal folders. These were highly capable executive assistants, women who had graduated from top-tier universities, whom Eric had systematically discarded over the last 8 years. Chloe, I said, looking at the first woman on the left, a sharp 30-year-old woman who had been Eric's chief secretary during our 4th year of marriage. Tell my father why you resigned. Chloe stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the polished marble floor. She didn't look at Eric, but the moment her eyes landed on him, a flash of deep, professional disgust passed through them. Mr. Son, Mrs. Son, Chloe said, her voice clear and carrying to every corner of the silent lobby. 6 years ago, I did not resign because Mrs. Tyler was jealous of me. I resigned because I discovered a secret subledger in the Novacorp accounting system. Mr. Tyler had transferred $4 million of the Son family's initial investment capital to an offshore shell company in the Cayman Islands called Lighthouse Holdings. The crowd of employees went dead silent. Benjamin Son's brow furrowed, his eyes darting from Chloe to Eric. 4 million? That was the capital earmarked for our logistics expansion. Yes, Chloe continued, pulling a certified bank audit from her folder and sliding it onto the reception counter. And when I confronted Mr. Tyler with the transaction record, he told me that if I didn't resign immediately and sign a non-disclosure agreement, he would use his influence with the Son family to ensure I was blacklisted from every financial firm in the state. He told my parents, he told everyone, that I was fired because Sandra had thrown a jealous tantrum. A low, uneasy murmur began to ripple through the lobby. The second secretary, Mia, I said, my voice dropping to a lower, colder register. Tell them about your departure. Mia stepped forward, her hand steady as she opened her own folder. 5 years ago, I was forced out because I found a monthly recurring payment of $50,000 from NovaCorp's corporate travel budget to a private residence in the Northside District. The villa was registered to a woman named Karen Kuntz, Ruby Kuntz's mother. When I flagged the expense as a non-business anomaly, Mr. Tyler threatened to sue me for corporate espionage. One by one, the 9 secretaries stepped forward. Each testimony was a precise, clinical incision into the devoted, tragic husband mask Eric had worn for 8 years. It wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't about my emotional outbursts. Eric had used my love for him as a weapon. He had deliberately cultivated the narrative of the insane, insecure wife to the board, to the employees, and, most importantly, to my parents, so that whenever a secretary discovered his financial betrayal, he could fire them and blame it on my tantrums. He had isolated me. He had made my own parents treat me like an ungrateful monster, all while he was systematically bleeding my family's legacy dry to fund his secret life. Eric's face did not turn red. It went completely white, his jaw tightening until the muscle in his cheek looked like a cord of steel. He stood in the center of his lobby, his hands clenched into tight fists at his sides, his eyes darting from the 9 folders on the counter to the silent, watching employees. This is a conspiracy, Eric whispered, his voice trembling as he looked at my father. Benjamin, Melinda, you know me. I was an orphan. You brought me into your home when I was 10. I worked myself to death for NovaCorp. Why would I steal from the family that raised me? Because you wanted to be the owner, Eric, not the charity case, I said, walking toward him. I stopped 3 feet away, the light of the high windows highlighting the dark blue bruises on my arms from when he had dragged me out of the restaurant. The photos of Caleb and me leaving the Starcrest Hotel. I said, my voice carrying a quiet, devastating clarity. We were in room 501 because that is where the independent server of the city's central land registry is located. Caleb is my cousin Eric. He's been my family's estate lawyer for 10 years. We stayed there to secure the corporate data before your IT department could wipe the subledgers. I looked at my mother, whose hand was shaking so violently she dropped her leather purse, her keys clattering uselessly against the marble. Melinda, I said softly. The child. The one Ruby Kuntz was seen with at the grocery store. The one Ivy said was part of her happy family. I reached into Caleb's briefcase, pulled out a DNA parentage report and set it directly on top of the pile of bank audits. The child's biological father is Eric Tyler. The marriage certificate Ruby has with her husband is a sham. The man is her brother-in-law, whom Eric paid $300,000 to act as the nominee father, so that the child's true lineage wouldn't be exposed during the corporate audits. The silence that followed was absolute. Ivy, who had been standing beside Ruby, took a slow, horrified step back, her hand flying to her throat as she looked at the DNA report. Ruby, Ivy whispered, her voice cracking. You told me the kid was your husband's. You said Sandra was just trying to ruin your life because she was jealous. Ruby didn't answer. Her perfectly composed, professional mask had completely shattered, her pale lips trembling, her fingers clutching her designer bag so tightly her knuckles were white. Benjamin, Eric gasped, his knees buckling as he dropped to his knees in front of my father, his hands clutching my father's trousers. Please. I made a mistake. The money. I wanted to buy the Northside villa for us. I wanted to prove that I could stand beside Sandra. I was under so much pressure. Benjamin Son looked down at the boy he had raised since he was 10. The boy he had treated like a son. The boy he had forced his own daughter to apologize to, time after time, because he believed the orphan was the only one who had a clean, honest heart. With a slow, heavy movement, my father raised his hand and struck Eric across the face with his leather-bound cane. Crack. Eric let out a sharp cry, his head hitting the marble floor, blood instantly erupting from his nose, mixing with the dust of the lobby floor. "Get out of my sight," Benjamin Son whispered, his voice shaking with a rage that was terrifying in its quietness. "You are no longer a son to me. And you are no longer the CEO of NovaCorp." The destruction of Eric's world was swift, clinical, and absolute. By noon, the municipal police and the federal financial regulators had arrived at the NovaCorp headquarters, carrying formal search warrants. Every computer, server, every ledger, and every private filing cabinet in Eric's office was sealed under court order. The board of directors, led by my father, held an emergency meeting. By a unanimous vote of 13-0, Eric Tyler was formally stripped of his title as CEO, his corporate shares frozen pending the outcome of the grand larceny investigation. He sat in the holding room of the civil court, his hands cuffed in front of his navy blue jumpsuit, his face thin, covered in a rough gray stubble. The door to the room opened with a soft click. I walked inside. I wore a tailored, charcoal gray wool coat, my posture straight, my chin raised, and the tired, hesitant look of the jealous housewife was completely gone. Behind me stood Caleb, carrying the final divorce settlement papers. "Sandra," Eric whispered, his voice raspy as he looked up at me. "The baby. Think of our child, Sandra. If I go to prison, the child won't have a father. They'll call him the son of a criminal. My child," I said, my voice completely steady, completely flat, "will have my last name, Eric. He will be a son. He will never know the name of the man who used his mother's love to steal from her family." I reached down, took the pen from Caleb, and signed my name across the bottom of the divorce decree, Sandra Son, the signature as clear and sharp as the day I had first entered this marriage. I tossed the pen onto his lap. "Your turn, Eric," I said. "Sign it." "No. Sandra, please," he sobbed, his head hitting the metal table, his tears mixing with the dust of the holding room floor. "I'll sign the asset transfer. I'll give you the Northside villa. Just tell your father to drop the criminal charges. I can't survive in prison." "The criminal charges," I said, "are no longer my decision, Eric. They belong to the state. And the Northside villa has already been seized by the receivership." I turned my back on him. "Caleb, let's go. Mr. Langford is waiting." The private dining room of the Starcrest Hotel was warm, smelling of cedarwood, expensive wine, and clean linen. Mr. Langford, the executive from the partner company whose multimillion-dollar contract I had destroyed 3 days ago, sat at the head of the table. He was a man of nearly 70, his hair silver, his eyes behind his wire-rimmed spectacles filled with a warm, genuine respect as he looked at me. "Sandra," Langford said, pouring a cup of hot chamomile tea and handing it to me. "Your father told me about the audit. I must say your timing was impeccable. If you hadn't disrupted the signing on Tuesday, the $300 million investment would have been transferred directly to Eric's offshore accounts." "I had to make it look natural, Uncle Langford," I said, offering him a small, genuine smile. He had been my father's closest friend and business partner for 40 years. The multimillion-dollar contract was never a real deal. It was a sting operation, designed by Caleb and me to force Eric into exposing his financial desperation. He was so confident, Langford laughed, shaking his head. He thought he had tilled the garden, and all he had to do was pluck the fruit. He forgot that the garden belongs to the Son family. He reached across the table, his hand resting on my shoulder. "How is the baby?" "Strong," I said, my hand gently resting on my stomach. "The doctor says the biochemical indicators have returned to normal now that I've stopped eating the vitamin supplements Eric prepared for me." The forensic analysis of the vitamins had been completed yesterday. The white tablets Eric had given me every morning, the ones he claimed were grapeseed extract for my skin, contained a low-dose synthetic estrogen suppressor designed to make me feel constantly tired, anxious, and cognitively sluggish, ensuring I would never have the energy to inspect the company's financial ledgers. He had been chemically keeping me weak. "The board," Langford said, "has formally appointed you as the new chairman and CEO of NovaCorp, Sandra. The registration was cleared at 4 this afternoon." I took a slow sip of the tea, the warmth spreading through my chest. "Thank you, Uncle," I said. "It's time to clean house." The grand boardroom of NovaCorp was silent. The 22 members of the senior management team, men and women who had spent years whispering about my jealousy and tantrums, sat around the long mahogany table, their heads bowed, their folders closed. I sat at the head of the table, my slate gray suit tailored and crisp, my hands resting on the armrests of the executive chair. Beside me stood Caleb, carrying the final termination notices. "First," I said, my voice clear, quiet, and carrying to every corner of the silent boardroom, "the termination of Ruby Kuntz's contract as sales lead, effective immediately. All personal and professional assets she acquired during her tenure are frozen pending the outcome of the grand larceny investigation. Nobody spoke. Not even Ivy, who sat at the corner table, her eyes red, her face pale as she stared at her lap. And second, I said, looking at the assembled department heads, we are launching a complete forensic audit of every department's travel and entertainment budget from the last 8 years. If anyone here has accepted a single dollar of compensation from Eric Tyler's private accounts, I suggest you submit your resignation before the investigators reach your office. 3 department heads stood up in unison, their faces pale, their hands shaking, as they quietly laid their badges on the table and walked out of the room. I didn't look at them. I stood up, my gray wool coat draped perfectly over my shoulders, and walked to the window. The rain had stopped over Cresford, leaving the sky clear, blue and bright, under the afternoon sun. The meeting is adjourned, I said. 6 months later, the private garden of the Son estate was quiet, the green leaves of the maples rustling softly in the spring breeze. I sat on a wooden bench, my hands holding a cup of hot chamomile tea, my baby, a beautiful, healthy little boy with my father's gray eyes, sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside me. My complexion was healthy, my cheeks flush with a natural, vibrant pink, my mind completely at peace. My parents walked down the gravel path, my father holding a small basket of fresh red apples he had just picked from our tree. Sandra, my mother said, her voice warm and steady as she stopped beside me. The baby's sleeping well today. Let me take him inside so you can rest. Thanks, Mom, I said, offering her a bright, genuine smile. We heard from the prison today, Sandra, my father said quietly, his eyes reflective as he looked at the sleeping child. Eric Tyler's final appeal was denied. His sentence has been confirmed, 15 years for financial fraud and aggravated chemical assault. I took a slow sip of my tea, my eyes fixed on the green leaves of the maples. I know, I said. I didn't feel any anger. I didn't feel any satisfaction. I felt only a profound, complete emptiness. The boy they had raised since he was 10 was gone. The husband who had peeled 3 shrimp for another woman was gone. The white, unmarked tablets were sitting in an evidence locker at the federal court, completely useless. I looked down at the sleeping child in the bassinet, his small, clean fingers curled around the edge of his blue blanket. Let's go inside, Caleb, my mother whispered, her hand gently taking the handle of the bassinet. The wind is getting cool. I stood up from the bench, my dark gray wool coat draped over my shoulders. I didn't look at the high-rise buildings of the city. I didn't look at the newspapers that were still talking about the Novacorp restructuring. I walked back to our warm, bright house, my father's hand taking mine, my mother's healthy, loving gaze welcoming me into the clean light of the morning. The 8 years of my life were finally, completely mine again. And as the door clicked shut behind us, I knew that the jealous housewife was finally beautifully dead, and the true sovereign of the boardroom was finally, completely home.